There is silence in the classroom. The teacher is about to call on someone. Anyone with their hand up. Emily, the teacher says, can you find a solution? Emily rattles off her theory, the equation for the math problem which could have been said in one simple sentence. Then again, I got a different answer, so it was good that I hadn't raised my hand. When Emily was finished, the teacher said, Emily, call on anybody. It doesn't matter if they have their hand up. I sank into my seat, wishing to turn invisible. Sarah, Emily said, calling her best friend. Phew. Sarah, do you have another solution alternate to Emily's? Asked the teacher. Sarah explained the simple solution. The teacher said she was correct. That was my solution, I thought. I could have gotten the problem right. But another part of my brain spoke to me. But you could have gotten the problem wrong. I spend a lot of time in the classroom worrying about doing badly or getting a question wrong. I hate those times when I know I have a question right, but then, standing at the board, I realize I counted incorrectly or saw something incorrectly. Sometimes I'll notice my mistake only after everyone disagrees and proves me wrong. Sometimes I just have to lamely say that I agree with the person who went before me because I realized my mistake before I've said a word. The teacher would remind me that she was looking for new theories, and I would slink back to my desk. I don't do that anymore, though. I'm seriously afraid of the dark. That's one of my biggest secrets because I know it will make me seem babyish. But who would I tell anyways? I don't have any friends to gossip or chat with. Getting a question wrong, doing something wrong, feeling your cheeks getting red as the whole class stares at you, that is a whole new level of darkness. That is the darkness I am afraid of the most. I believe that it's important to be smart, and I believe that I am smart. But if I get a question wrong, I won't seem smart. I'd rather people think I'm mute and smart than a person who participates in class but is dumb. I want to be recognized, but at the same time, I don't want to be recognized in a bad way. All my fears start to crush me, and I can barely slide out of my seat as the bell rings. Time for lunch. No one sits with me or talks to me during lunch, so I can just eat my lunch in peace and draw. I draw all the popular kids: Emily, Sarah, Maria, Connor, Joe, George. I lean over my sketch pad so no one sees my caricatures and gets offended. I draw big noses, ginormous mouths, heads the size of large boulders, and tiny hands with long fingers like worms. Then I draw myself for the first time. I'm pretty proud of the drawing, me sinking in my seat, scared to answer a single question. That was when I decided. I could be scared of the dark all I wanted, but I'm not going to be afraid of speaking up and talking anymore. Next period, I talked. I answered the hardest questions correctly and commented on different things. I made the class laugh. I made them ask me how I did things. The next day, at lunch, the darkness of school didn't exist anymore because there were so many people that had somehow chosen to sit at my table.
Nice, that's great, Emma. Thanks for sharing that. It's not often that we get to hear you reading stories or reading prose. That was really fun. So, okay, first of all, just a couple things about the character. What makes the character complicated is the fact that she is outwardly very awkward. She's self-conscious. Um, she's shy. The images we see of her are images of shrinking, getting smaller, or disappearing. Um, she's slinking constantly in her seat, wants to disappear, to become invisible, to turn invisible, she says at one point. So the images of her are constantly uh, images of diminution, of getting smaller and smaller. But that's complicated and contradicted by the fact that the prose she writes, she's speaking in her own voice in the story, is really chatty. It's like she's really like kind of like almost rambling, explaining herself in these situations. So we see that internally she's an overthinker. Uh, she's bombarded by conflicting thoughts and descriptions. So we get this outward image of her as someone shrinking, but then the prose itself is growing. It's very ecstatic. It's almost exuberant. It's loud. It's, like I said, it's talkative and chatty. So there's already a kind of a contradiction there. My favorite thing about the story is how she draws. She has the caricatures of people. I would like even to see what those caricatures look like. So maybe if you decide to expand this into like a full length story, I would love to see some descriptions of her drawings, because through those descriptions we might learn something about her and how she sees the world, in terms of her drawings and her caricatures, especially the drawing of herself. Um, and then if you decided to pursue this story into a full length story, which I think it would be really wonderful if you did, because you have a really compelling voice and a really compelling conflict. I'd be curious to see what kind of um, tension or pressure she faces when she does decide to speak up, and when she does decide to speak up in class, what does she say exactly? So maybe show us as readers what she says specifically, and maybe like the first time she speaks up, she says way too much. There's this moment at the very beginning where Emily is very verbose and talkative. Emily's wordy. Like Emily says way too much. The narrator says that her answer was too long and it could have been said simply, and then Emily calls on, I think, Sarah, and then Sarah says the answer very simply. So maybe that could be kind of a foreshadowing where when we finally get to see the protagonist speak in class, she ends up doing what Emily does instead of what Sarah does, or something like that. So there could be some kind of pressure or some kind of conflict. So yeah, if you decide to expand it, it'd be fun to kind of zoom in on the actual class where she starts to speak, um, and maybe she has this little internal crisis, and then somehow overcomes it or something like that. Yeah, that was great. That was really fun. Character, sketch, and story, and obviously it is a full story in a sense, because there's a conflict and there's a resolution. So yeah, it was really great, and great writing as usual. Really great. Always a fun voice.